All right, Steeler fans, welcome back. A big thanks to Hogan for taking the time and talking about the Patriots and being honest about the team and what he thinks about the game coming up. Going to be a good one. Patriots, Steelers, a lot of history there. I know Steeler fans don't like to dive back into that treasure chest, but there's a lot of history between those two teams. Now, let's go over our DEFCON levels. Let's update those numbers before we get into the mailbag. Y'all had a lot of questions, and I'm going to answer every single one of them. So here we go. DEFCON levels. Are they going to change? Yeah, you bet they're going to change. When you lose a game the way the Steelers did at home in week 2, 31-17 to the Seahawks, things are going to change. Now, in case this is your first time ever seeing me do the DEFCON levels, or hearing me, I should say, remember, 1 is awful. 1, in terms of DEFCON, is war is imminent. 5 is great. This is the best. We are moving around as if nothing is going wrong. Nothing is even a blip on the radar. It's a perfectly blue sky, so to speak. You want 5s, you don't want 1s. Keep that in the back of your mind. So quarterback, it was a 4, it goes down 1 to a 3. Aaron Rodgers didn't have his best game. And that's just the best way I can say it. There were some throws that he made that were absolutely jaw-dropping. The pass that he threw to Pat Freiermuth, where he was able to escape the pocket, he's rolling to his right, and he threw it, I think I saw 54 yards in the air, and it was on the money. It reminded me of the throw Justin Fields made in Denver last year to George Pickens, which was completed, but got called back to a Broderick Jones holding penalty. This was almost identical. It might have traveled further in the air, and it was dropped. And that was a free play, too. There was a penalty on the play, but it was a defensive penalty. It was a defensive holding. They held Calvin Austin. And, man, what a beautiful throw. Freiermuth with a brutal drop. That was a great throw, but there were also some that I'm sure he wants back. I've got the quarterback going down to a 3. Let's go to running back. Running back was a 2, and it stays a 2. This does not have anything to do with Caleb Johnson's special teams play. They're just not running the ball well. And Jaylen Warren took a big step forward. Kenneth Gainwell continues to just run into the back of his lineman. Is that on the lineman? Sure. Is it also on him? Probably. Stays a 2. Wide receiver and tight end, it was a 4. It goes down to a 3. I talked about the Pat Freiermuth drop. You talk about when Calvin Austin when you're ad-libbing routes, he ran the wrong route in the red zone, which equated in the interception. That was a backbreaker. DK Metcalf continues to have drops. I think he is at 4 or 5 for the season after just 2 games. That's not a good trend. And then when you look at the depth of reception for someone like Jonnu Smith, they're basically only running him on tight end screens. What the hell are we doing? Wide receiver tight end goes down to a 3. The offensive line actually holds steady at 2. While Broderick Jones took a step back and played a little bit better, Troy Fautanu took a step in the wrong direction. And so I'm just going to keep it at a 2. This group has a lot to improve on. God, they cannot keep letting Aaron Rodgers get hit as much as he has been. Stays at a 2. Let's go to defense. Defensive backs, they were a 4. It goes to a 3. You talk about the injuries with Joey Porter Jr. and Deshaun Elliott. And we're going to talk about this in the mailbag. I'm sure I have questions about it. But also the scheme is not helping these guys out much at all. So it's going to go from a 4 down to a 3. If you can get Joey Porter Jr. back, if Darius Slay's not really banged up with that shoulder injury, hopefully it can kind of resurrect itself. It's not horrible. Jalen Ramsey still is making plays, but ultimately it's going down in the wrong direction. Inside linebacker stays at a 3. And I got a lot of crap from putting Peyton Wilson on the winners list. And yes, he did not look great the entire time, but no one on the defense looked great the entire time. You could talk about Patrick Queen. He got messed up in the PFF grades, and he was the one that he also had plays where he got washed out, where linemen climbed up the ladder to him. It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't. I've got inside linebacker staying at 3. They're going to need Cole Holcomb hopefully to step up and actually make some plays. Hopefully he got the rust off last week. Outside linebacker, it goes from a 4 down to a 3. TJ Watt's got to start getting to the quarterback, and that's also on the defensive coaching staff to put him in positions. And I know that he's still affecting the game, and I'm not suggesting that he isn't. When Jack Sawyer got his sack, the reason why he got that sack is TJ Watt drew at least 2 people to him, and Sawyer was one-on-one with the quarterback. So he is impacting the game, but you want to see a different type of impact, not just being a diversion, so to speak. So it goes from a 4 down to a 3. Defensive line stays at a 2. You can see, you can learn a lot about the Steelers by their defensive line and offensive line DEFCON levels both being a 2. It's just not good enough. And then when you look at the defensive line being banged up, man, it's tough. It's tough sledding right now. Let's hope it doesn't go down to a 1. Let's hope maybe they have a good run defense performance up in New England. Special teams, it goes from a 4 down to a 3. The reason being, well, Caleb Johnson happened. And that sucks because, Chris Boswell's had a really great season so far. So has Corliss Waitman, some really great booming punts. But their return games, their kick coverage, I said it on the Winners and Losers podcast on Monday. Go back and check it out. I think the Steelers' kick coverage return units are some of the most overrated in the NFL. They're not good, and that's why it goes down to a 3. The fan DEFCON levels. How do we rate the fans? Well, the fans aren't happy, as you can expect, and guess what? It's going to go down to a 2. So it's going down to a 2. We'll see how this levels out. It always goes with the trends. If they win, it's great. If they don't, it goes down. So this is such a knee-jerk league now with the fan reaction. Every week, it's like we live and die, literally. So let's get to the mailbag, shall we? A lot of questions asked, 25 in total. So let's get to this. Corey Eckenroth asks, so if you had to boil it down to just one thing you wanted Coach Tomlin to focus on and fix just for this week, what would it be? Fix the run defense. That's it. Fix the run defense. The Steelers can survive with the way that Jaylen Warren ran. They can survive with the way that Aaron Rodgers is playing. They can't survive by not stopping the run. If there was only one thing that I wanted him to fix, it's that. Let's go to Jeff Coons, our buddy from up north. Greetings from Not Matt, Canada. A podcast-themed question today. When you have a guest from another NFL market on your Behind Enemy Line segment, do you return the favor when the Steelers play their team? I'll admit I only listen to Steelers content and I was curious. It depends. Sometimes the people that are on my show will also ask me to be on theirs. Sometimes they will say, can you send me the MP3? And the show that you hear, they hear on their podcast platform. It just depends. Sometimes they don't. They don't have time, or maybe they don't do that type of segment. It really is a case-by-case basis, but that's a good question. Let's go to M Dibs 24 said, which do you feel is the player in the worst position? Caleb on kickoff returns, Kenneth Gainwell running between the tackles, Loudermilk on early rundowns, or Benton at nose tackle. In the worst position is Caleb Johnson because he's not going to be returning kicks this week. Mike Tomlin said that in his press conference on Tuesday. But if I had to go another direction, I'd probably say Benton at nose tackle. And it's not just Benton at nose tackle. Like, we need to make that change as a fan base. It's Benton along the defensive front. They're not in their base defense all that much. And so some people are like screaming from the mountaintops, they need to draft a pure nose tackle. They don't use a nose tackle that much. So in that regard, you need Keanu Benton when he's not at nose, he's still on the defensive front, to not get pushed around. That's what you want. So that's where I'm going to go with that. Will Caldwell asked 2 questions, or actually one, it's 2 parts. He said, hey, Jeff, I had to split my question between these 2 comments, and I apologize in advance. In the upper right corner of this chart, you can see Dante Jackson with basically one of the best efficiency ratings out of the corners listed. This chart measures yards per snap against QBR. And then in the bottom, the wrong side of this is Jalen Ramsey, just so you all that are listening in the audio can see. Will also said, this is the type of thing I was alluding to last week, where player after player leave and seem to find success. Am I the only one who seems to think personnel, scheme, and usage fit is a significant problem with the Steelers? It absolutely is a problem with the Steelers. We have seen this so many times, whether it's Kevin Dotson leaves and goes to LA and they put him in a different position and he succeeds. Whether it was Kendrick Green, and I don't know if he's still on the Houston Texans roster, but for that little time that he spent there before he got hurt, he was playing well. We've seen it in other cases as well. I'm not going to go through the whole laundry list. But yes, the way that the Steelers deploy their players can oftentimes not be what's best for the player, which then begs the question, why are you obtaining the player then? An example, Dante Jackson came over from Carolina last offseason in the Deontay Johnson trade. They might have said, we don't think this guy is a good outside corner, or he's got to be on the boundary or whatever, but they didn't play him that way. And the scheme didn't seem to fit. And he goes, and he couldn't stay healthy, first and foremost, but he goes and he now is finding a new home in LA. And he seems to be thriving there. I don't know, but I agree. There are some issues between the way the Steelers see players, what they do best, and what they actually ask them to do. All right, let's go to Tank. Good morning, crew. Can we slowly but surely find our defense, or will we be sink or swim off Aaron Rodgers' arm all season? I think they will slowly find the defense, but the question is are they going to be willing to make any adjustments to find the defense? That's the big question. I don't know the answer to that. Then he said, with teams testing our defensive backs early and often, do you think Slay will get help, or will a stronger defensive line help him more? I think both would help. And I think that the Steelers would be wise, and once Joey Porter Jr. can come back, they would be wise to mix and match much better than what they are currently. And then lastly, from Tank, with Burrow being out, can we deal Rudolph to Cincinnati? I'm surprised. I mean, there's a lot of quarterback injuries, whether you're looking at Brock Purdy, his toe injury. Obviously, Burrow has an injury. I think there's something like 15% of starting quarterbacks are banged up and dealing with some form of injury. I don't think people are going to be clamoring for Mason Rudolph just yet. I think someone like Kirk Cousins would get a phone call. Maybe even a Jameis Winston in New York would get a phone call before they call on Mason Rudolph. All right, let's go to Schnecky. Trying to look on the bright side here. But is it maybe that the defense played little, if at all, during the preseason? I got to be honest, I'd rather watch a promising build than this old and slow S show. And that's crazy talk. All right, so good question. I don't know. I heard Brian Davis on Bad Language yesterday, and he talked about how some of the injuries are because they didn't play in the preseason. I don't agree with that, because really, if you're going to talk about starters, if they play in preseason week 1, what are they playing? A series? Is that really priming their body to avoid injury? If they play in week 2, if they build up to 2 drives or something like that, is that really going to do a lot for injury prevention? No, I don't think it is. Is it going to do something in terms of getting them together on the same page, kind of like you're alluding to? That is something that we are going to have to weigh when we look at what did the Steelers do comparatively to last year and this year, and did we see any difference in the early results? We shall see. Let's go to Justin Glenn. He said, what is one thing the Steelers do that is above average? Could be drafting, developing, in-game adjustments, play calling, clock management, coaching, motivating, anything. All right, so you are looking for the extra stuff. Like, you're not talking about on-field. Because on-field, I would say that, to me, Chris Boswell is on the team. So he is definitely above average. But in terms of this, because drafting, developing, in-game adjustment, okay. I actually think that under Omar Khan, they have done a much better job with drafting. And I think that is, by proxy, Andy Weidel. I think that is a really good staff and scouting department. I was thinking about this the other day when I had some free time on my hands. And even though right now there are struggles, I do think that they're building the nucleus of this team. And that the nucleus of this team is still headed in the right direction. When you think about the offensive line additions, I think that they've made some really good picks that are going to be there for a really long time. They're not a finished product, but I would say that's above average. I think they're above average with drafting, at least since Omar Khan took over. Other than that, it is difficult. In-game adjustments, no. Play calling, no. Clock management, no. Coaching, no. Motivating, maybe. Mike Tomlin is a good motivator. I'd say he's above average. It's a good question, though. All right, let's go to Timu Engberg. He said, how does NFL broadcasting work in the United States? Are some games available to watch for free, or do you have to pay for all of them? Here in Finland, the only option is to pay about 265 euros for NFL Game Pass, but that gives you access to every game. Love the show. All right, this is a good question. People they don't know. So anyone that has basic cable is going to be guaranteed probably 3 main channels, NBC, CBS, Fox, and probably ABC as a 4th. So that's going to cover at least one game from CBS, or from on Sundays, it's going to give you one game in a single slot, let's say at CBS. Fox is going to have doubleheaders, so you're going to have 3 games there given to you just for having cable. You're going to get ESPN on ABC, which is going to give you Monday Night Football. You're going to get NBC, which is Sunday Night Football. Anymore, Amazon Prime has Thursday Night Football, so you have to pay for that. So it's not free. You have to have cable, but if you have cable, you get those games with no additional cost. You have to have Amazon Prime. You're going to have Netflix to watch some games this year. Peacock has had games that's extra. And then you're like me, where I have YouTube TV, where I have NFL Sunday Ticket, which gives me every game unless it's one of those streaming services. So keep that in the back. That's really interesting, though, that I do know that a lot of people that are overseas, they have to pay strictly for NFL Game Pass and they get all the games. So that's how it works in the U.S. Sometimes it's better than nothing. I guess we'll put it that way. All right, let's go to, we have a couple here. Let's go to James. He said, this might be difficult to look ahead, but where do you think Pittsburgh needs to be after the bye week to be trending upwards? Obviously, win more games first and foremost, but things such as injury, scheming, more or less playtime. I think that when you look at who is going to be the odds on likelihood, who they're going to be facing in terms of quarterbacks going into the bye and then even after, they have, in my opinion, a golden opportunity. Not predicting this, but they have a golden opportunity to win their next 4 games. And if they could do that, boy, would that change everything. And that sounds crazy right now. I get it. It sounds absolutely absurd. But at the same time, I can look at this and say, you know what? They're going to be playing some backup quarterbacks. They're going to be playing like a young quarterback in Drake May. They've got Joe Flacco on the docket. Joe Burrow's not going to be with the Bengals. It's setting up like the good vibes are coming to the Steelers. Can they finish the job? We shall see. Let's go to Brendan. Hey, Jeff. Injuries reports from Steelers are mainly defense. Is this a big signal of lack of physicality? Is there a preparation, training, or an attitude problem? Lack of intensity, physicality is turning on injuries, not a Steelers way. I don't know, Ronan, if I would say that any type of mentality or anything like that is going to lead to these type of injuries. When you talk about high ankle sprain, a lot of times that's getting rolled up on. You can train your rear end off, and that doesn't matter. When you talk about an oblique or a shoulder injury with tackling, sometimes that stuff just happens. Like, you can't always prevent injury. I'm a huge injury prevention guy, but I also recognize that you can't always prevent injuries from happening. All right, let's go to Frosty the Bear. He asked a bunch of questions. He said, is it time for a change of coaches? The team looks like the same no matter who is coordinating. Tomlin plays soft, vanilla, scared scheme football. I think there are some coaches that, if they don't turn things around, are going to be on the hot seat after this year. And no, I don't think that's Mike Tomlin. I'm going to say it till I'm blue in the face. He has a golden ticket. He will be the Steelers coach until he says, or until his contract runs out and the Steelers say we're not renewing it, or until he says I'm done coaching or I want to coach somewhere else. Just my own opinion, not saying I agree with it. The next from Frosty. The same pattern run by the Jets was run by the Seahawks. Same result, touchdown pass. Why can everyone see how predictable the Steelers are but their own coaches? That's a great question. I saw that Coach Kevin Smith put that out on Twitter. He showed how they ran a deep cross with a single eye safety. Steelers didn't communicate a switch or anything like that. Thornhill has to pick one over the other. The quarterback waits. He picks. He goes the other way. Touchdown both cases. Next from Frosty the Bear. Coach common denominator Tomlin is the root cause of the demise of the standard. This team has not been feared for over a decade. Are their schemes too simple for today's NFL? I do think that there are people that I do think they're very slow to change. We'll put it that way. Next, the losses don't even hurt anymore or ruin the week of fans like it used to. Is that a sign of the pirate effect with fans losing interest? I don't think they're losing interest. I think they are dumbing down expectations. I think they're looking at it and saying, okay, this is just how it's going to be. Then lastly, there has been a steady decline with a few spikes since 2010. Only Tomlin, 2007, and Coach Smith, 2001, have been with the team since then. It's rough. It's rough. And he says, most irrelevant since 2010, would you have traded non-losing seasons for a few trips to the Super Bowl, 1 or 2 championships in that time frame? See the Eagles and Chiefs records during that period. Hell yes, I would have. I don't care about winning seasons. I'd love to see the team get to a Super Bowl again and to win one. All right, Brian Haynes asked a bunch of questions. More worrisome, run defense or giving up chunk plays like it's Christmas, or the pass defense not getting home? I'm going to say that right now the run defense is most concerning. Next from Brian, what is going on with the defensive injuries? Hamstrings and ankles are killing us. Unrelated question, where can I or anybody donate our ankles and hamstrings? Brian also asked, at 1-1, are we really in such dire straits that people believe we're done? The common thread amongst the fan base is that we are done. I do not agree with that at all. All right, let's go to Nathan Van Slyke. Hey, Jeff, I've always been a bigger fan of defense than offense, so you can imagine how frustrated I've been feeling the first 2 weeks. Do you think they'll be able to make the necessary changes to improve? I hope so. And I do think they are going to make some changes that are going to make an impact. Will they be enough of an impact? We shall see. Steelers 419. Should I try to get a refund for my Caleb Johnson jersey? Just kidding. But it has been a rough 2 weeks for him. My actual question is, what were your thoughts on punting on 4th and 1 at midfield? I hated that decision. I thought that they had been successful on short yardage situations the entire game. They picked up 3rd and 1 on multiple occasions. Why would you not go for it? Maybe someone would say it's living in your fears. I don't know. All right, let's go to D. Gandamore. Why is Tomlin so stubborn? He refuses to change. His defensive schemes are basic and outdated and predictable. And what happened to TJ moving around and wrecking the game? Garrett and Parsons do it constantly with success. Why is he so scared to change things? Maybe it's a Tomlin, Terrell Austin thing. Maybe it's a TJ Watt thing. But I said it, I wouldn't watch the Micah Parsons and I wouldn't watch the goofball up in Cleveland, Myles Garrett. I would say put on the Max Crosby film and say, TJ, we want you to do this. That's what I want him to do. TJ Watt and Max Crosby have more of a similar game style than Micah Parsons and Myles Garrett, and that has nothing to do with the color of their skin. It's about play style. And I think that the Steelers would be smart to try and adopt some of those things they had all offseason. I suggested it. They didn't listen to me. What the heck, guys? Come on. All right, let's go to Lou Rita. We're almost done. What is it going to take to get Terrell Austin? I mean, I know Coach Tomlin and him are in cahoots, but come on, with the chess pieces he has to play with, and he uses them like checker pieces, and his concepts are so vanilla with every opponent has figured out what is going on. Stop the madness. I hate to tell you this, Lou, but if you think this is just Terrell Austin's defense, sorry, it's not. This is Mike Tomlin's defense. And lastly, but certainly not least, Steeler Fan 69 says, "Hello, my friend. How does a hot dog go camping? In a wiener bago." What do you call a group of mediocre country western singers? An OK corral. And lastly, the patient says, "Doctor, I have a bad case of diarrhea. What should I do?" "Doctor, throw out the case." Those are great. I love those. Those are really, really funny. All right, that's been a great show. It's went a little bit longer. I apologize for that. You had a lot of questions. I've always said I'm going to answer every question y'all ask, and I stand by that. So that does it for me. I'll be back on Friday with an All Bets Are Off segment with Jeremy Jerome Betts. In the meantime, check out all of our podcasts on the Steel Curtain Network. And those that aren't on YouTube, just go to Steel Curtain Network. Wherever you get your podcast, you'll find us. And then also make sure you check out SteelCurtainNetwork.com. All right, that does it for me. You know how we finish these up. Be safe, be kind, and God bless. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you on Friday. Go Steelers.